by respiratory leaders for respiratory
I have to dance,
leaders.
it's part of it.
This is RT Sidebar. Stay tuned.
All right. Welcome, RT Sidebar, Barflies. It is so great to be here. This is a new one. You've never seen this before. I'm at a high school. Yes, they actually let me in a high school, but I'm here because Mr. Braglio, one of my dearest and oldest friends, invited me to talk to his class about podcasting, and we're going to talk about my story and how I got into podcasting. So we're super excited to have these wonderful students. You guys can all clap. It's all interactive. Very good. Yay! So we're going to go into podcasting, and really what I said is everyone has a podcast, so how do you make it successful? Next period. All right. So making a successful podcast is hard. Currently today, there are 2 million podcasts out there, which is a ton of podcasts, okay? Everyone has a podcast. And people have like 3 viewers. Doesn't mean that's a podcast. That means you have an internet show that you like to talk on. But having a podcast, it means about having an audience. We're going to talk about that. Only 11% make it to 50 episodes. Only 6% make it to 100. The very best episodes have video, which we just talked about. So how do you make a good episode? I'm going to teach you guys what my journey is. And I don't know if it's the right journey or the wrong journey, but I just hit 64 episodes. Woohoo! Yay! Woo! There you go. You just have to clap whenever I get excited. But first, a public service announcement, okay? Everything you put on the internet can be found, okay? So this is Mr. Braglio right here next to my brother, and when they were in college at Millersville. So yay, Mr. Braglio. He was young at one point. He's a little grayer now. This is 15 years ago, Steve. 15 years ago at Simon's wedding. Yes, 15 years ago. Hair, he has hair. You'll see other pictures. I haven't had hair in a long time, okay? And that's just part of who I am. So to totally understand where RT Sidebar comes from, you have to start from the beginning. But you always have to remember there's things on the internet that Mr. Braglio puts on that I found last night that are 12 years old that I wasn't super happy that were there. This is me at Warrior Dash. Remember, whatever you put on the internet will be found. I literally found that last night, Steve, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Simon.
Oh, that was Simon? Oh, my God.
We did the mutter.
Well, you guys did the mutter. So one of the things that I take pride in is I'm a goofball. It's who I am. What I am, it's who I always will be. And I believe that's actually what makes me a successful podcaster, because I'm just a guy. I'm not some magical human being that does this magical thing. I just talk. I talk about stories. And stories is what people want to hear out of a podcast. The best podcasters in the world tell great stories. So just like when I got in here, you all have a friend that tells a really good joke, right? And you all have a friend that takes a really bad joke. That's Dan Weitzel for us. Really bad jokes. And it's all about how you tell stories. So if you tell a story really well, you can have a podcast. But you have to figure out what story can you actually tell. So I'm going to tell you my story. I have been a respiratory therapist for almost 30 years. Okay? I started when I was 20 years old. If you know anybody that wants to get in healthcare, go to this website, morerts.com. Steve knows very well my wife is a respiratory therapist. Being a respiratory therapist has been very good for me and my family and my friends. I've helped friends through asthma and their kids through bronchiolitis. I've done a lot of these things. I actually delivered twins of my friend. It was I've had a great life, and I've loved being a respiratory therapist. But being a respiratory therapist is hard. Every time somebody has a code, oh, they're having a code blue because somebody's trying to die in the hospital, that's when you call a respiratory therapist. We're kind of like Batman. We swoop in, nobody knows our name, we swoop in, we fix the problem, and we leave. That's what we do. But a respiratory therapist is something that is really near and dear to my heart. I stumbled into it. I wrestled at Mansfield University, and my scholarship would last 2 years. So I picked a 2-year degree, which happened to be respiratory therapy. And I got very lucky because I fell in love with it. and it's been very good to me. What I found in respiratory therapy is I love taking care of kids. Why? Because kids don't smoke. Okay? Old people, well, you get to a certain point, you might, yes, but kids aren't supposed to smoke. Okay? But adults do. And a lot of times, adults, if they have breathing problems, they did it to themselves. But kids, they haven't. Okay? Sometimes kids are premature and their lungs aren't developed. Some kids develop asthma. Some kids develop all of those things. And I dedicated my life, and my wife has as well, to taking care of the respiratory health of children. And I became a neopediatric specialist as well as my wife. And I ran the neonatal pediatric specialty at Reading Hospital for multiple years. I got sick of it. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to get better, and I wanted to help more people. So I went back to school, got my bachelor's and my master's degree, and I became more of a manager, healthcare administrator. And I moved around quite a bit. The shining part of my life is I got to move to North Carolina, where I worked at the largest children's hospital in North Carolina, and I was the head of cardiopulmonary sciences. So I got the chance to take care of kids, and that was very special to me. I have been the president of the Pennsylvania Society for Respiratory Care. I've been a board member of multiple different agencies, and I really care about respiratory therapy. So my passion is about my profession. It's important. If you don't have passion, don't start a podcast. Just don't. It's going to be a complete waste of your time. Do you really want to talk about underwater basket weaving? Don't start a podcast about underwater basket weaving. But to me, I really cared. I really care about my profession. I care about what I've done, and all I want to do is help people. I want to leave healthcare a better place than I found it. That's my passion. But remember, I'm still a goofball. Also found this on Steve Feather's Facebook page last night. This is from a long time ago. This is a clam right here. I was eating clams. I have no idea why. I'm still me. I'm still Matt. Remember? Yeah. Now you're starting to remember. I'm still Matt. I'm still the Matt that went to high school with Mr. Braglio. I'm still the goofy guy that everybody picks on for being a bald leprechaun. That's what I am. And that's part of my charm. That's part of what makes me entertaining. And I love who I am. But I will tell you, we all have a story, and this is my story about how I became a podcaster. And it all started with this thing. You guys remember this thing? So I was working at Lancaster General Hospital, which is right down the road from where Mr. Braglio went to college. And when COVID came, we knew it was coming. Like my team at Penn Medicine, where my wife works today, Penn Medicine knew what to do, knew it was coming. And it came. We saw it come from New York. It came right past Allentown and came down to Lancaster General. And people died. A lot of people died. And I'm a respiratory therapist. I run the respiratory therapy department of 100 respiratory therapists. And we saw a lot of death. And I remember, Steve, is this real? Like, what should I do? Should I get a vaccine? Yes. Do all of these things because we didn't know how to stop it. I got a phone call one day from our chief medical officer. His name is Dr. Mike Ripchinsky. He's probably going to run for state senate soon. So vote for him. He's a really good dude. He calls me on a Sunday afternoon. I had no idea what the number was. And he said, "Hey, Matt." I'm like, "Hello? This is Rip." We used to call him Rip. "This is Rip." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Everybody's dying." "Yep." "This is a respiratory pandemic. Fix it." Click. I'm like, ah! Oh my God. Crap my pants a little bit. I got to be honest. But I had to find a way to keep people from dying, and I'm the expert in this, and we couldn't figure it out. We learned about 3 months into the pandemic, if you can keep people off ventilators, they don't die. So how can you keep people off ventilators? Well, there's a device that I learned about from this guy, Joe. Joe Army is the CEO of Vapotherm. Vapotherm makes a product that delivers humidified warm gas to the nose at a very high speed. And if you can wear it and tolerate it and get through the crisis of COVID, you don't get put on life support and you survive. I did a very large investment in this. And at Lancaster General, throughout it, it was tough. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But we had the lowest mortality rate in the whole state of Pennsylvania. Because of this technology, me being a respiratory therapist and bringing people around me to help me successful, helped me. When I first met Joe's a little wild, and he'll watch this episode and he'll yell at me. Joe's our CEO. He goes, Matt, I'm going to be your leadership coach. And I'm like, okay. And then he calls me a week later and we start talking about leadership. And we became really good friends. You need to have people around you to support you in your passions. And Joe is that person. So in 2022, I moved to Vapotherm and worked and began my journey at Vapotherm and helping them with all their educational materials, different marketing, things of that nature. But he said to me when I got there the first day, he had a gigantic box and it's full of microphones and stuff. He goes, you're going to start a podcast. I'm like, what's a podcast? I didn't know, like, start a podcast. But if you know Joe, he was darn serious. We had no idea. Anna, my producer, Dr. Jonathan Butler, my co-host, and Jeff Maglin, our head of marketing, were like, we got to figure this out. We were literally Googling how to start a podcast because we had no idea. So our first few episodes weren't that great, to be honest. We did our best. It was all right. Don't listen to episode 1. Listen to episode 56, not episode 1, okay? And you can find them. So over the last 2.5 years, we have had 64 podcasts, and we've learned things along the way. So here I'm going to bestow my epic wisdom and knowledge about podcasting. Right, JJ? Yeah, all right. Okay. You ready? For you guys, this is what you need. They're the only 4 things you need. And don't make it difficult. This is all you need. If you have a podcast about the NFL, do you think it's going to take off the ground? There's probably 10,000 podcasts about the NFL. There's probably 10,000 podcasts about engineering. You need to find a theme or a niche, something that you're passionate about, but also isn't talked about all that much. Remember, 2 million podcasts. If you could find a theme that you're passionate about, that no one else is talking about, that's where you go into podcasting. Okay? You have to be super special to jump into somebody else's pond. Okay? It is hard. So find something that you love. So theme and a niche is perfect. You need equipment. So for you guys, you need some type of equipment. I'm going to make that super easy for you. But the most important piece, you have to tell a story. If you can't tell a story, you can't have a podcast. And then you need to create a network. And you guys as young people, young adults, you guys know how to create a network because networks exist all on your phone. It's not so hard anymore. I had to learn that because I'm old. You ready to start? Pick a theme, okay? I want you guys to think about a theme that you could possibly have a podcast about. Think about something that you're passionate about. And I want you to write it down. 1 sentence, 2 words, whatever it is. I want you to think about it because when we're all done, I'm going to ask you what you think you would like to talk about because I'm just interested, okay? But here's the process that I went through, okay? I went, okay, we're going to start a respiratory podcast. So first thing I did is I wrote respiratory podcast in Google, and I found 157. Okay? Uh-oh. That's a lot. But they were by the American Lung Association. That sounds like a fun podcast. The American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine. I can't even read this stuff, let alone listen to it. The Cleveland Clinic, you're like, oh, they're kind of important. Nah. Lancet, European Respiratory Society. And as I did some research, because I'm trying to find my theme, I'm trying to find my niche, I'm trying to find the thing I can be passionate about, what I found is all these were boring. If you learn anything about marketing from me, marketing is 2 things. It's education and entertainment. If you're not entertaining, you may have classes right now. This school year, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to stay awake for this one? And you might have some that are entertaining. Which one do you learn better from? Pretty simple, right? Respiratory podcasts are out there, and they're boring. You don't want to talk about pseudostratified columnar epithelium in the lung cell that goes to the alveoli, that crosses the capillary membrane. You don't want to hear about that, do you? Anybody want to hear about it? I learned about it. I don't want to hear about it. But there are some that do it well. Okay, and what I learned is JJ the RT, buddy of mine, JJ, he has a great Instagram following. He has a vlog that's really good. This is Linda on the right. She has a podcast called RT Share Tea. She has a really interesting niche. She only talks about asthma and good vibes. So it's all about positivity, and it's all about how to treat asthma. So she's got a really interesting niche for respiratory therapists, but also for respiratory patients. She found her thing that nobody else does. The Vent Room, this is done by Dr. Tabitha Dragonberry out of DC, I believe. She talks about ventilators. You're like, ugh, ventilators. But she has fun with it. She brings on cool guests to talk about it. She makes it fun. She makes it different. EM Over Easy is an emergency medicine podcast. I've been on it twice. All they do is have fun and drink beer. And they talk about their day. I could listen to that on my way to work. That's fun. This guy's the most successful one here. His name is Joe Lewis. He's called Respiratory Coach. His vlogs and podcasts are only for respiratory therapy students and to help them get through college. So you're like, I don't understand what my teacher just taught me. Go to Respiratory Coach's website and you'll go over it in a different way. But each one of these have their own thing. That's really important. And they go deep. They stick to that thing. They don't go blah. They go, this is what I'm going to talk about because this is what I'm passionate about, because passion comes through. So what we found at RT Sidebar, there is a piece that's really missing. That respiratory therapists don't look at themselves as leaders in healthcare. So how can we help respiratory therapists be better leaders in healthcare? So we call respiratory therapy is a respiratory podcast by respiratory leaders. So I bring respiratory leaders that have weird, crazy stories and how they dealt with them. Because they might have a story that might help. Oh, I had exactly the same thing that happened to me in my hospital in New Jersey. And I'm talking to somebody from Utah. So this is when we started. Episode 1, 2022. Introducing RT Sidebar. The greatest thing about this picture, Mr. Braglio knows who that person is. And he's trying to figure out who it is right now. He's wearing... We are. You're going to notice a lot of bald men on my presentation because bald is beautiful.
My stepdad's bald. Every once in a while I send him a video titled, Am I Going Bald?
Is it like literally my friends, your teacher, were having a meme going around about putting a plunger on my head last night. Literally last night.
I've always wanted to throw one of those, like, Velveeta singles.
Exactly. It's awesome, right? Do you know who that is?
I know we've talked about this.
That is Josh Good. He is his RA from Millersville. And he worked with me at Lancaster General. Small world. So Josh, I'm going to see you on Saturday. Can't wait to see you, buddy. But our first episode, Josh was actually the second episode. This is literally my office and a camera pointed towards me, and we hope that it went well. We had no idea what we were doing. And we talked about quality improvement projects. That makes you want to listen, doesn't it? You're like, woo! We had no idea what we were doing. But we did our best. And we learned throughout the process. And we always try to get better and better and better. But please don't listen to our first couple episodes. Our ones got better. So you have to find that niche. Did you see how we found it? We found something. We found something that the audience didn't have. The next one is equipment and logistics. Okay, did everybody write down their theme that they could think about? Something that's interesting to them, because we'll review that when we're all done. You need a camera. You got to post video. You have to. It's just what it is. Okay? If you want to be a successful podcast, I work from home, and a lot of people work from home. They don't jump in the car to listen to a podcast anymore. They just don't. Okay? And do you really want to listen to a respiratory therapy podcast on your way to work? I do, because I'm nerdy. But the video, the reels, the clips, right? When you're scrolling in bed at night, you're like, oh, there's the RT Sidebar. That works. So cameras matter. A microphone, don't overthink it. These are perfectly fine. Okay? Headphones are weird. A lot of times you use headphones in a podcast so it doesn't create an echo. But what you find is that a lot of the software programs kind of reduce that echo anyway, so you don't have to worry about that much. You need a recording platform, okay? You can record on your computer, you can record on your phone, you can record on Zoom. Zoom actually has really great audio. It does. Teams actually does a pretty good audio if you're doing a remote interview. They do a good job, okay? Editing software for my friends that want to do video production. I learned something very quickly. If you take an audio component and edit audio and then edit video, you're editing twice. If you edit video and then pull the audio out, you're editing once. So I use a Microsoft product. It's about the easiest thing because I'm not that smart. I use Clipchamp. That's what I use. It works really well. I shove my raw video in, cut. Here's a clip, here's a clip, here's a clip, done. Put in some music, all easy to do. Super, super simple. If you're doing audio, you guys probably use GarageBand. That's usually popular. GarageBand works really well. A Microsoft version or a PC version of that is Audacity. That one, that's got a little bit of a learning curve to it, especially for somebody that doesn't do that. But a lot of it is keep it simple. We have found that doing Instagram Live is going to record it for you. I get to pick it up and put it right into Clipchamp, and I'm done. Like, it's literally that simple. That's why we do it through Instagram Live. JJ taught us that. JJ the RT. Okay? But a lot of this can be very, very expensive. So if you Google, okay, podcasting equipment, you're going to spend thousands of dollars. This is what I use most of the time. Telling a story. Telling a story matters more than anything else because you can't have a podcast unless you have an audience. And if you can't capture your audience, podcasting means nothing. It just doesn't. And Anna, who's our senior producer, and I spent a lot of time learning how to tell a story. And that sounds silly, but it's important. And I'm going to give you this one right here. There's 4 episodes on the Gimlet Academy. They tell you how to tell a story. They have interesting people on it, and they tell a story, and they said, okay, try to do it this way, tell a story. Your job as a podcaster is to get stories out of people. A podcaster is inherently a good storyteller, but can you get your guests to be a good storyteller? So the Gimlet Academy, before Spotify was big, the Gimlet Academy had a huge umbrella platform where they had multiple podcasts underneath it, but they did it the best. They sold to Spotify in 2019 for $200 million. $200 million. Why? Because they had a good recipe. They knew how to tell a story. This is The Moth. If you're ever in New York City, they have an open studio where you could open mic a podcast. So they'll bring you in, you basically try it out. The Moth has a bunch of really awesome podcasts. You're like, there's the one I listened to, a guy tells a story about being in Antarctica and falling through the ice with 3 women from New York. Like, why are 3 women in New York in Antarctica? Because they can afford it. Now, he fell through the ice and had to rely on these 3 people that have never seen ice to save his life. It is so powerful. You feel like you're there. It's really awesome. This is my buddy Mike Sheehan. He's from California. He was on a TED Talk. TED Talks are all stories. That's what TED Talks are. And if you can tell a good story, you can get on TED Talk. Mike is a phenomenal storyteller. And how you tell a story is through these 3 things. Set up your context. What is the conflict? And what is the outcome? You take a person through a journey. That's why it's important. You have characters. You have dialogue, right? Well, I got in trouble last night because I came home too late, and my mom was pissed, and she's like, meh, 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 meh. And that's a story. And you're like, well, what happened next? What did your mom say? Did you get in trouble? Did you get grounded? That's a story. Yeah, I came home last night, late last night. Mom was mad. Is that a story? Stories also use your senses. You're good, buddy. No worries. Use your senses. What did it smell like? What did it sound like? What did it feel like? What everything. If you could paint a picture, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Lastly, be authentic. Remember, I'm a goofball. That's who I am. I'm a goofball. That's what I am. I'm authentic. I never try to be anything that I'm not. I don't try to be a scientist. I don't try to be somebody magical. That's who I am. Lastly, this is where you guys as young adults thrive, where I do not. Okay? You need to create a network. This is important. Okay? It's a part I didn't realize was so important. I could tell how many downloads I get on how many times I post to LinkedIn. I could predict it. You have to be relevant. And the way to be relevant is to start a network. Okay? That's why I asked. Well, you guys don't use Facebook because you're too young. You use Instagram. You guys use Snapchat. You guys do something. So if you know who your audience is. My audience is a bunch of respiratory therapists in their 40s. LinkedIn is fine. Facebook is fine. Okay? But you have to build some fans. You have to build a following. You can't have 3 listeners. You won't make it. You have to engage with your fans. Okay? So this is Yoko Tanaka. Yoko. Always good to see you. She was my first groupie. She met me in California early in 2024, and she also started to cry a little bit. She's like, "Oh my God, you're Matt Pavlichko." I go, "I am. Why are you crying?" She's like, "I love RT Sidebar." And I look back, and when she made a comment on my clips, I commented back. So she felt like I'm being listened to. A great podcast engages with their fans. Be consistent with your posts. This one's hard. This is how podcasts fail. If you say you're going to post every Thursday, post every Thursday. Be authentic and be interesting. Whatever platform you use, think about who your audience is, not what platform you're comfortable with. Okay? We are expanding into Instagram. I learned how to do it now. Okay? Make sense? Stick to the recipe and have fun. So these are clips from all RT sidebars that are out there. Okay? We have had 64 episodes. We are super excited. This is the New Jersey Society for Respiratory Care Conference. She's the head of education for the American Association for Respiratory Care, the biggest organization for respiratory therapists. Mindy is the first advanced practice prescribing respiratory therapist in the world. This is Ed Garcia. He's become a real good friend. As you can see, multiple bald people. There we go. There's Dr. Jonathan Butler. He's my original co-host. He decided to shave his head one day, I think just because he wanted to be cool like me. There's Anna. There's all the things that we have done. This is at Ohio State, where we get to have fun. And all these people are not only my guests, they become my friends. They become my network. Make sense? This is what I'm super proud of. RT Sidebar now is 63 episodes. So it's 64 now because I just posted one this morning. 14,000 downloads, greater than 100,000 real videos. We're in 71 different countries. We're in the top 5% of podcasts in China, I found out. How? I have no idea. YouTube we're working on. We have over 34,000 LinkedIn followers. This is JJ. Remember I told you JJ the RT? He's now a co-host. He's got a great network. So instead of competing with him, I'm like, why don't you join us? He's like, okay. There's Mindy Conklin. She's from Ohio State. She'll say the Ohio State because we're from Pennsylvania. We don't like Ohio State. There's Jonathan and Anna, my originals. We're on 3 different platforms. RT Sidebar, JJ's, and the Respiratory Therapy Break Room, which has almost 80,000 followers. So we built our network into a way that we could talk pretty much about anything. I can come to your high school and talk about how a podcast works, and I can post it to my podcast, and people will watch. I guarantee I'll get at least 1,000 views just on LinkedIn. And last month we became the #1 respiratory podcast in the world. Yay! So it's been fun. I didn't know how to do a podcast, and now I do, and it's been successful. And I think that we'll hit 100. And we're doing all the right things, but podcasting is not just about equipment. It's about a story, and it's about a network. That really matters, and something that you're passionate about. And whenever I talk to young people, because I talk to respiratory therapy students a lot, do what you're excited about. Mr. Braglio and I, we talk all the time. We are passionate about what we do, and it's not work if you're passionate about what you do. You don't want to clock in, do your work, and just dread being to work every day. Do what you're passionate about. If you do what you're passionate about, you're going to have a great life. So please do so, okay? And do it in respiratory therapy if you think about healthcare, okay? All right. So this gets me a little emotional. RT Sidebar is award winning. Time for lunch, right? Time for lunch, there you go. RT Sidebar, with the help of Vapotherm, won something called the Zenith Award, which is an award that's given to the best device or medical manufacturers in the country. We won that award, and we believe that it has a lot to do with the network we created through RT Sidebar. And at that same, I was awarded something I never thought I'd ever be awarded. It's called Fellowship to the American Association for Respiratory Care. There's less than 500 that have ever been awarded this. So I believe that it has purely what I've been able to do at RT Sidebar, because people look at RT Sidebar as something special. People say thank you all the time. I met a guy that's going to be on in a couple weeks. He's Egyptian. And they were talking about the Egypt Society for Respiratory Care, and I went to introduce myself. I go, hi, and he goes, I know who you are. Yes, you do. It was awesome, Muhammad. Can't wait, buddy. But it's been very good to me. So if I can give you anything, remember themes, tell a story, create a network. This stuff doesn't matter all that much, okay? But do what you're passionate about. Please, please. You'll have such a happier life. And I've been able to have a great life with my family because of what I'm passionate about. So thank you guys so much for being on RT Sidebar. We're super excited. This will get posted very soon. So because I work for a medical device manufacturer, I got to play this. High school students, they're like not impressed with my nerdiness. Mr. Bra is impressed.